everybody, my name is Chef Rob. Today we are going to make pumpkin pie scones with a spice glaze on it. Perfect for all fall, during pumpkin season, and even into Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving morning to wake up to these, absolutely great. So we're going to start with the dry ingredients. We're going to get 2 cups of the all-purpose flour. Make sure that is spooned like this, nice and level. Once you make this recipe, this will be a family favorite all the time. 2 cups, the all-purpose flour. And now I need 7 tablespoons of the white sugar. If you've been watching my classes, I always say, make sure you add all the sugar that you are supposed to. So we are at 3. Make sure it's nice and level. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, if you don't put in the right amount of sugar, the crust will not come out the texture will be different, and you will not get the same amount of moisture in it. Okay? I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of the baking powder. You can kind of use up against the lip right here to make it nice and smooth. Add that right in here to the dry ingredients. A ½ teaspoon of the salt. Salt in the baking recipe is very important because it will bring out all those different spice flavors and the pumpkin flavor as well. If you want to change this from pumpkin to sweet potato, it will work. Okay, so not everybody's a pumpkin fan. We're going to take some of the dry spices now. A ½ teaspoon of the ground cinnamon. A ½ teaspoon of the ground nutmeg. Always keep the spices in a cool, dark place so that way they stay nice and fresh. A ¼ teaspoon of the ground cloves. Cloves are a little bit more stronger than the other spices. And a ¼ teaspoon of ground ginger. Just like that. So now you want to just take all your dry ingredients, whisk these around, or take a spoon, mix them around really good. Just make sure they're really incorporated really well. And then we're just going to set this on the side. And then we're going to get our wet ingredients and then combine them. Okay, good. So we have all of our dry ingredients in the bowl. I'm just going to take 6 tablespoons of the unsalted butter, and I am just going to dice this small. You could always take a grater and grate it in, and it will go really, really quick. Always make sure when the recipe does say cold butter, you are using cold butter. Okay, if it says melted butter, use melted butter. It is very crucial to your recipe. So we're just going to add this in here. You could put this in a food processor if you want, but if you don't want to take out a food processor just for a couple pulses, you don't have to, okay? You could just kind of get this just till it's nice and crumbly. So this will take a couple minutes of doing this. When you put the scones in the oven, you're going to want to put it into a 425 preheated oven, and you want to bake them on the silicone baking mats or parchment paper. Parchment paper can take up to 450 degrees, so you are fine at 425. Just make sure that you trim the parchment paper so it's not hanging over the edges. You're going to cook it towards the lower rack of the oven. And then on the rack above, you're going to take a sheet of aluminum foil and you're just going to kind of tent it over the scones so this way they don't get too brown too quickly, because 425 is a very high temperature, but they will be really well protected with the foil. And remember, 14 to 16 minutes and they are done. Once they do come out of the oven, we're going to let them cool, and then we are going to put our spice glaze onto them, and that will be really, really flavorful. If you don't like it too sweet, you can drizzle as much or as little as you would like. These are going to be scones that you would find in a really good bakery. and they freeze excellent too. Okay, so these clumps of butter are just about out. Again, you can put it in a Cuisinart, but if you don't want to take out a big thing like that, just to wash every single thing, and you got some gloves, just mix it up like this, and then there is nothing left in there. Perfect. These are just little flour balls. That's it. Okay, good. We're going to mix our wet ingredients now. I just need 3 tablespoons of the half and half. Yes, it is really important to have the half and half. So if you don't really use half and half, just buy the smallest one that you can find. And don't buy the fat-free one. It will not work. It will make the batter crumble. And now 1 large egg. Put that right in there. And now a ½ cup of the pure pumpkin. The pure or the puree, same thing. Just do not get the pumpkin pie filling. It should be nice and solid like this. Pumpkin pie filling is very sweet and thinner. So make sure you have the pure or the puree. We are just going to whisk this really well, just until it's incorporated. So it's not a lot of pumpkin in here, but with all the spices and the ½ cup of pumpkin, you will get a lot of pumpkin flavor out of it. Okay, so we're just going to take this, the wet ingredients, and we're going to add it into the dry. And now we're just going to get it until it's folded in really nicely. Again, if you wanted to put this into a food processor, you could do it, but just do not overmix the batter. As soon as it comes together, just stop. So this batter is nice and incorporated nicely. I'm just going to take a little bit of flour. I am going to dust my cutting board or whatever surface you may be using. You're going to take this pumpkin pie scone batter and put it right onto the flour. If you are using your hands without gloves, you may get a little sticky, but I'm going to show you the way that you should handle this batter. Never go on top right here because it's very sticky right here. Now the bottom has all flour there, so that is not sticky. So what I want to do is toss it again, toss it, roll it in here, and now if you can see, my hands are really clean. I am just going to knead this for a few seconds, and then I am going to form this into a ball, and then we're going to cut it into our scones. Now I'm going to pat down the dough, and with my hand I'm bringing the dough in. So I want it to be nice and level. I'm going to bring this up so you can see that it is nice and even right across. It will make for good even cooking. If the dough is down like that, this is going to take longer, and this is going to be done too quick. That'll be really crusty and maybe even a little burnt. So make sure it looks like that. I am going to cut this. You're going to get 6 really nice sized scones out of it. When I'm cutting it, you're going to say, hey, they look pretty small, but when the baking powder takes over, they get pretty large. If you find that your dough is a little sticky, you could put it in the refrigerator for a half hour to an hour and then cut them. But as you can see, I'm getting a little bit on my knife, but it's fine. I always want to make sure that oven is preheated to 425. Make sure it goes on one of these silicone baking mats. They are really, really good. Or the parchment paper. Now, since I've just been cutting these, what I do want to do is bring the dough back in and make sure again that it is nice and even all around. So that way they cook the right amount of time. If you want a smaller scone, you can cut these into 8. But what I would do, because it might be a little tough getting 8 out of them, just put the dough in the refrigerator for a good hour and it will cut easier for you. So here are 6 scones that are going to go right into the oven, and 425, 14 to 16 minutes. And then while this is in the oven, we're going to make our spice glaze. Okay, while the scones are in the oven, let's make our spice glaze. I'm going to take 1 full cup of the powdered sugar. Just kind of shake that off just like that. And now I want 2 tablespoons of milk, the whole milk. If you don't have the whole milk and you have some of the half and half left over, that would work just fine. Okay, that way you don't have to buy so many different milks. 2 tablespoons of that. Let's just whisk that. And 1 cup of this sugar really goes down to almost nothing, right? But it's so sweet that you only need this much for these 6 scones. Or 8 if you're making the 8. If you can see the consistency. Nice drizzle just like that. Now I want to put in a 1/4 teaspoon of the ground cinnamon, 1/8 of a teaspoon, so a little bit less, of the ground nutmeg. The ground cloves is just a pinch, so that is just like a dot, okay? And a pinch of the ground cinnamon as well. Very, very strong, so you just want a little bit. Whisk that together really good. After the scones come out of the oven and after they have cooled, we will drizzle this on. Now you could take your whisk and kind of go like this over the scones and put as much as you want, or you can kind of take a nice tablespoon and just maybe a little less messier for you. Okay, but there are 2 different ways to do it. But definitely make sure that you wait until the scones have cooled. Look at the size of these scones. They got really big, so you can cut them. You can even just cut them right in half. One of these for breakfast, more than enough. Okay, so again, if you like them sweet, take a little bit of this glaze and just lightly drizzle it on here. Okay, just go back and forth nice and lightly. Don't put too much on or it will be way too sweet. But everybody has a different preference on this. And just do it nice and thinly. If you can put this in a squeeze bottle, that works as well. Everybody, I'm going to leave some with the glaze on it, some plain. Okay, so I hope you enjoy these and serve these at Thanksgiving.